We had an amazing journey so far, Victor. I'm wondering what we are doing now in the middle of nowhere.
It's not the middle of nowhere. It's actually one of my favourite walks. I love just going along here.
Right.
And you used to live in a narrow boat, so you like it along here.
Yes, I do.
And I also go kayaking here. It's wonderful.
I've never been here with my boat, but I am assuming that there is something hiding behind the corner.
We always like a secret, and it is just round the corner here. We're going to talk to an expert and find out why the Reformation's actually all around us right now.
Okay, Victor, you lead again and I'll follow.
I'll lead and we'll find something on politics.
Let's do that.
Historians are by nature doubting Thomases. We're not content with accepting the accepted wisdom, and we like to probe and to prove and to test all things. Sometimes this is an affirming experience, finding out that what you thought was true actually is true. Sometimes it is a disconcerting experience. What you always thought was right actually isn't. Studying the Reformation results in both these experiences, providing both a positive reinforcement of people or events, but also a stripping away of the propaganda and mythology, revealing that the treasure is sometimes found in cracked and broken jars. Heroes are not always heroic. Black and white truths are actually complicated, messy and grey. Sometimes our critics are right about our history. In our interconnected world where fake news can make its way around the globe before the truth can get its trousers on, it's vital, at least to me, to be absolutely clear and honest about our origins so we know where we stand.
Robin, we had this beautiful walk next to the canal and we saw this ruin behind us. What is that about?
Well, the ruin is part of Henry VIII's political needs. He needs money. Henry VIII dissolves, along with his Chief Chancellor Thomas Cromwell, he dissolves many of the religious places in England to gain money. He needs money for stability, he needs money to live, and these are very important things, obviously, for a monarch to have. And so part of the reason for doing this and shutting down these places is to get money.
But we always see a priory like that and we think, okay, that's the Reformation, that's doing away with all of the Catholic traditions that people no longer wanted. You're just saying it's money. Is there more reason why Henry VIII was kind of moving from his hate of Luther, which he strongly had, to we need reform?
Well, Henry VIII is really only interested in money, but the man who he gives the task to is actually kind of interested in more Protestant things. And so Henry does it for the money, but Thomas Cromwell does it because he doesn't think that they're a good influence really on people. And so many of these places get shut down. A lot of them are, there's a lot of anti-priestly sentiment back then. People thought that they were corrupt, and so this was a good way of getting rid of them and also solving another problem.
And of course, in addition to that, he kind of needed to swap wives, and the Pope wasn't.
Well, this is the problem. He wants to marry another wife and can't because he can't get dispensation for doing so. So in the end, he has to essentially become the head of his own church, which he does, and that enables him to divorce his wives when and how he chooses.
So it seems to me this was all very tricky.
It's a very tricky situation because what we like to think of the Reformation is the religious parts, but there are also parts which are nothing to do with religion at all. It's just expediency. It's just because it's convenient. And so we end up with a situation in England where we have things being convenient for us. And that's why we end up with the situation we have.
But it kind of gives space for Reformation to happen, doesn't it? For reformers to come in.
This is it. Henry opens up. Henry starts the process. And while he's not really interested in being a Protestant really in any shape or form, he does Protestant-style things, or at least his advisors advise him to do that. But a little bit later on, it's his children who really open up England to being Protestant. And so that's Edward VI, very Protestant. His first daughter, Mary, tries to bring things back to being Catholic, but then we go back to Elizabeth again.
Switches back and forth.
Yes.
I'm kind of challenged. I'm just thinking about it. If I was living there at that time, how do I choose? Do I choose on the basis of politics? Who's in charge at the time? Do I choose on the basis of religion?
Well, this is part of it. That's why we have the Anglican Church in many ways, because it's a compromise to try and make both parties happy or possibly equally unhappy. Because how do you rule a nation with, where there's lots of Protestants and lots of Catholics? And so that's what the Anglican Church is. It's a way to try and make everybody sort of happy. But of course, why you were going to choose that church? Well, you're kind of forced to. I mean, you were fined if you didn't go to church, even though they weren't really enforced very much. It was one of those things where if you didn't go to church, they'd fine you. So everybody became Anglican by default.
So it wasn't really a Reformation. It was this is the way the church is for now. That's where you're going.
It is state religion, and state religion, if you have to do it, then people aren't really going to be interested in it. But what you do have is then space for real reformers, people who actually really do want to read the Bible and do all the things that Protestants are known for. That allows them to come in and set up shop, and that's what we have in England at that point.
And maybe going and setting up shop at a local church would be a good thing right now.
It could be. Elizabeth ends up with a church that has to compromise to try and stop both Catholics and Protestants from killing each other. She says, "I do not wish to make windows into men's souls," because she doesn't really care what you think as long as you behave well in church, but also outside of church. So we end up with a Reformation that maybe doesn't please everybody, but it pleases some segment of the population, but others are less pleased.
And I suppose you can understand the compromise because it kept the peace, but people still want to develop. You even see that from this building, because from 1150 right through to now, it's gone through transformations, it's adapted. It's even the site for sending cannonballs across to the priory there to destroy it, but it's adapted, it's continued, it's open today as a place of prayer. It's a witness.
Yes, it's a witness to the fact that the Christian faith has managed to go through so many different permutations. It's adapted so many different times. And that, I think, is perhaps one of the wonderful things about Christianity in that it isn't this fixed, rigid thing like Elizabeth may have wanted it to be, despite she had good intentions for it. But it is something that can grow and change and sort of accept a wide number of different people.
And in our context, it's giving us permission to think, permission to challenge, permission to move our faith and our mission forwards.
Yes, and that's a very important space. If you can't do that, then you end up being trapped within a particular kind of way of thinking about something, and that obviously does work sometimes, but it won't last for very long.
So even a story that started today, in a sense, with politics, with someone wanting to change their marriage, it's maybe not the right reasons, but from it, we can get good things.
Yes, exactly. Why? Well, it was all unintended. It was an accident, if you like, that it happened in Britain. The space that it allowed people, it's unintended, but we get the benefits from it, if you like, today, as Protestant Christians.
And for us, even very personally.
Yes, exactly.
Once again, a very long day. But certainly, Victor, what I learned today is that the Reformation history is truly all around us.
It's all around us. I'm glad you enjoyed the walk, by the way.
Yes, it was shorter today than yesterday, for sure.
I would like to have taken you further, but I had mercy. You're right, the Reformation was all around us, and yet it was a very mixed kind of story, wasn't it?
Yes.
We tend to put the Reformation in little boxes and every bit's clean.
But it's very messy altogether. It seems to me that there is a lot of parts of this history which really were taken for the wrong reasons, but somehow ended up in the right direction.
And that's what's important in our lives. Things kind of happen, and
Yes.
it's not always right, and yet God can do things, and we see things, and we spend time just thinking things through.
And as we are making this journey together, in trying to see a little bit more of this history, I have a feeling that the people who are willing to take journey with God in this story, in the end, will be able to, in the end, brought this to the right conclusion. Maybe not even conclusion, maybe just the beginning of something new.
Journey is the word.
Yes.
It has to continue.
It has to continue.